This is the Garmin Descent MK2. Let's compare it to Apple's Apple Watch Ultra. Welcome everybody to Apple Insider. It is Andrew here. And the Apple Watch Ultra is Apple's highest-end flagship smartwatch. And one of its most distinguishing features is that it can be used as a full-fledged dive watch. But it's not the only high-end smartwatch on the market. In this video, I'm going to be comparing the all-new Apple Watch Ultra against Garmin's MK2, well, technically the MK2i, which includes air integration for scuba diving. This is a fantastic smartwatch just for normal use, but it has the added benefits of operating as a dive computer. So let's pit these two head to head, and see which one is the better wearable for your needs. Starting out, neither of these watches are going to be considered budget-friendly option. These are both two high-end watches, and their features and their materials reflect that. So the Apple Watch Ultra, this comes in one size, just 49 millimeters, and it's going to run you $799 with a few different band configurations directly through Apple. Looking at the Garmin Descent MK2, there's two different sizes. You can opt for the smaller 43 millimeter version or the larger 52 millimeter version. The one I'm looking at here is the 52 millimeter version. Definitely larger. It's larger than the Apple Watch. Definitely more of a chunky style watch. The 42 or the 43 millimeter version, it's definitely smaller, more petite, a little more feminine in its styling. The 52 is definitely more of a rugged, manly looking watch, but of course there's no gender either way with these, whatever you prefer for your wrists. Right now, chunky watches are in, so I particularly do like the size. Looking at it next to Apple Watch Ultra, it looks a little bit more rugged, a little bit more durable, but they both look great in my opinion. The Apple Watch Ultra has a titanium body with a ceramic back and a sapphire glass front. Garmin is doing something similar. It still has a titanium front. It actually has a DLC titanium, so the diamond-like coating, which gives it that black appearance for the bezel. Then it has this fiber reinforced polymer body, which is ultra durable, and then we have metal on the back, which I believe is just more stainless steel to keep things super durable. Both watches look fantastic. I kind of like the look of the Garmin one a little bit more, but one of the biggest differentiators between the two is that Garmin does not have a touchscreen. So it's actually all operated by 5 different buttons that are situated around the face. The idea being, if you're doing something like a fitness activity, you need that tactile feel to know what's going on. And while you're diving, you need to feel around the watch to be able to hit buttons easily while wearing gloves. Apple Watch Ultra, on the other hand, does have a touchscreen interface with 3 different buttons if you include the digital crown. There's the side button next to the digital crown and the action button on the opposing side. The big idea here being Apple has added an additional button in that action button so that you have more physical control over this watch than other versions of the Apple Watch. And because Apple has increased the knurling around the digital crown, it makes it easier to control with equipment on like gloves. Let's look at some specs, okay? So Apple says the Apple Watch Ultra has a WR100M rating, which is about 100 meters of water resistance. But Garmin goes further because Apple limits your diving capabilities with the Apple Watch Ultra to only 40 meters. The Garmin Descent MK2 is rated for up to 100 meters of dive activity. Now, that's definitely a much deeper dive rating. More pros are going to lean that way, but for any recreational diving, 40 meters is going to be your maximum. Open water and advanced open water caps you off at 120 feet or 40 meters. So for any standard kind of recreational diving, 40 is going to be your limit, and it has water resistance beyond that, but that's what Apple is capping it at. The Garmin, on the other hand, much further, all the way down to 100 meters rated for diving. So big benefit there if you are a pro-level diver, getting some master courses beyond your typical recreational diving certs. Apple Watch Ultra will last you about a day and a half depending on use. Apple says 36 hours of battery life here. But the Garmin, they're doing things crazy. This thing is not in hours, but in days. You can get about 16 days of battery life on the Garmin Descent MK2. So much more, but that can vary based on how you use it and what you're doing, your activity tracking, all of that. But it basically means you can have it for an entire weekend, throw this thing on, definitely never worry about it at all. Apple does have a little bit more of a nicer charger though, just gotten a magnetic charger, has new fast charging capabilities. The Garmin on the other hand uses a proprietary clip. Now Apple's charger is proprietary as well, but the clip is just not as elegant as Apple's is, and it just clips over the side of it and boom, it kind of goes into place, charges it with some pogo pins on the back. But again, Garmin, so much more water resistance to this, and I do not mind the way this clip is able to work, and it's able to maximize things like the build quality, the water resistance, and that battery capacity. Both watches can measure your heart rate and give you high and low alerts. They each have pulse oximeters built in so they can give you blood oxygen levels, and they each offer sleep tracking. One of the ways, though, that Garmin bests Apple is that the Garmin Descent MK2 is able to also monitor your stress levels throughout the day, and that's something that Apple has not fully went into yet. They have the meditation app, but nothing actually dedicated to stress tracking like we have on Garmin. Apple Watch Ultra supports Wi-Fi, LTE cellular, and the L1 and L5 bands of GPS. Conversely, the Garmin Descent MK2, this guy includes support for Wi-Fi, but there is no cellular option. It also only covers your basic GPS systems, does not cover both L1 and L5 that Apple has added to the Apple Watch Ultra. The other benefit though for Garmin users is that you can connect this to the InReach system, which is a satellite communication system from Garmin for improved communication. Each of these has a built-in thermometer and can measure things like water temperature, though Apple's will measure your body temperature overnight as you're wearing it and can be used for things like cycle tracking inside of the Apple cycle tracking app. Garmin can track the cycle tracking as well, but it does not do the body temperature tracking and apply it the same way that Apple does. Finally, they each support mobile payments. Apple is, of course, using Apple Pay for wireless NFC payments. Garmin is using Garmin Pay. Same thing, different names. You can do it on both of them. Let's talk about workouts, and then I'll wrap this up by talking about the diving capabilities of each watch. For workouts, each of these I think has benefits, and Apple has gone a long way with most recent versions of watchOS, adding a ton of new features including the customizable watch faces, there's new pacer options, a lot of stuff for runners and outdoor sports. Apple's done a bunch here with recent versions of watchOS 9, but Garmin, I think, still has a big lead when it comes to more niche activities. I mean, looking at golfing, there's a ton you can do with golfing alone as just one singular sport. But looking at outdoor activities, Garmin can also track really specific workouts like standing paddleboarding, bouldering, climbing mountains. There is hunting, kite surfing, windsurfing, snowshoeing, horseback riding, jump master, pickleball, tactical. There's so much more that I think Garmin can do with workouts that Apple has just not gotten to yet. And in some different instances, Garmin is doing more than Apple is for ones that Apple already supports. So for swimming, they both support like open water swimming, they both support pool swimming, they both can track your laps and all of that, but Garmin can go further with things like swim efficiency, stroke detection between like backstroke, breaststroke, anything like that. There's drill recording, there's a built-in pacer for swimming, auto rest built in, a lot of detailed things that more high-level athletes are going to appreciate that Garmin offers that Apple doesn't. And this small jump, it may not be for everybody, but it's the reason that a lot of people choose the Garmin that take their workouts and these things more seriously than your average Apple Watch user. Like I said, both do an excellent job in terms of workout tracking, but Garmin has more sports, more activities that you can track, and more detailed views. Apple's is a bit easier to control with these workouts, and I like the screen and interface of it a little bit better, but it's just going to depend on your preference level when you are working out. Now, let's talk about diving. What I'm most excited about here, both of these are being advertised as dive watches as well as standard smartwatches. So it's kind of a really good comparison because there's very few on the market that can do this stuff. So first up, depth. I alluded to this a bit at the beginning of the video. Apple is limiting its diving to 40 meters, whereas the Garmin Descent Mark II can go all the way up to 100 meters of scuba diving. That's 300 feet, roughly. The other difference is that Apple does not include air integration on the Apple Watch. Garmin is using their own proprietary subwave sonar system to transmit data from a transmitter all the way to the Garmin Descent Mark II for up to 10 feet underwater. So you do need to use something like this. I mean, exactly this, which is the Garmin T1. So this is the air transmitter. When I go diving with the Garmin, I connect this to my air tank. This just connects right at the top. I screw this in. This is going to send my remaining air to my Garmin while I'm diving, and I can see how much air I have left in my tank right there on my wrist. It's very convenient. It can also alert me to things like a leak in the tank where the pressure is dropping rapidly, and I can also see how much air is in there at all times, and it can tap me from getting too low when I need to return to the surface. So a lot of vital information there where I don't have to go to a separate dive computer or air reading elsewhere on my BC or dangling by my side. So I really love the air integration here. Also, you can pair up to 5 different transmitters, so if you have different sets of gear, you can swap these out. So you can have 5 different transmitters paired to the Garmin Descent Mark II-i. The I is the version with the air integration. Both the Apple Watch and the Garmin can automatically start dive tracking once you jump into the water. There's a difference, though, with how they're tracking this, and that is Apple is not doing any of the tracking. It's actually all being done using third-party applications, and the only one available right now is the Oceanic Plus application, which does carry an additional subscription option. The subscription can vary from $10 a month to $80 a year, which, depending on how much you dive, can add an additional cost to your Apple Watch. But considering how much cheaper the Apple Watch Ultra is than the Garmin Descent Mark II, it's still a cheaper option, I think, for most users out there, especially your casual recreational divers. But when you get into more tech diving and more higher end diving, there's stuff that you need to be aware of. For instance, tracking the different airs. So on the Apple Watch Ultra, the Oceanic Plus app can track both nitrox as well as your standard air. But on the Garmin, you can have multiple airs per dive, and you can track things like air, nitrox, trimix, up to 100% O2, a bottom gas, and up to 11 deco and or backup gases. Just a bunch of different stuff for high-end divers that are doing a lot of stuff that the Apple Watch isn't even close to comparing. Apple doesn't support multi-air modes or CCR, which is closed circuit rebreathers. Both of those are supported on the Garmin Mark II-i. With the Oceanic Plus app on Apple Watch Ultra, you can get alerts. You can get ascension and descension alerts if you're rising or decreasing too fast, and you can get automatically alerted when you hit a safety stop. The Garmin Descent Mark II-i will do the same thing. It'll alert you if you're going up or down too quickly and when you get to your safety stop. But your safety stop can also be customized. You can choose to turn it off if you don't want to use it. You can also choose to use a 3-minute or a 5-minute safety stop. That preference is up to you and your dive planning. Also, beyond all of this, each of them will alert you and tap your wrist when you have those notifications come through. So that's pretty par for the course for both of them. The Garmin Descent Mark II-i includes a bunch of other alerts that it can tap you and notify you about. You're going to see things like PO2, CNS, O2U, no decompression limit, your decompression time, gas switching, tank pressure, gas consumption rate, and all of this is customizable with audible and vibration per dive based on depth or time. So not only are there a bunch more notifications that you can get, but they're customizable and personalizable based on the dive or depth that you're doing. As each of these watches supports GPS, they will monitor and mark your entry and exit locations from the water, and they each include built-in compasses while you're diving. These are also 3-axis compasses that can compensate for your tilt and direction, so it'll always make sure you are facing the right way no matter which way you are oriented underwater, which is, again, 3-dimensional versus kind of your 2-dimensional space above water. So what's the better smartwatch here? It depends on the user, right? I mean, the Descent Mark II is an incredibly capable watch, especially for divers. It's built on Garmin's Fenix platform, which is already a really nice platform for smartwatches, but you lose some of the usability of the watch. I don't like that there's no touchscreen and the buttons can be a bit annoying to deal with. You also can't type and it doesn't have as many nice graphics as Apple's have, and Apple's screen just looks a lot nicer. But you lose out on the Apple Watch of all the high-end metrics and all these advanced metrics and tracking things that the Garmin and the Fenix system can do, let alone for diving. There's still so much more you can do with diving on the Garmin, not even including the Air integration that Apple cannot even come close to offering. So again, it's up to you in what you're doing. Apple has some really nice new features, including like the crash detection modes. There's the built-in siren for when you're hiking, and it does a lot more than just diving. But for a smartwatch or for a diving watch, the Garmin wins out. And the same for actual like really high-end, well-trained athletes that need more than the Apple Watch can offer. But for your average user, your average recreational diver, the Apple Watch is going to be a fantastic option, and it's even cheaper. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Stay tuned, I got a lot more videos heading your way.